As a septuagenarian, when I look back, what little I have achieved, and I really do not find any common denominator or a factor which makes me suitable and eligible to speak on Dr. Bhabha. Let me be very frank, and I am sure, and in fact, I am afraid that there must be someone in the audience who will be knowing Dr. Bhabha in greater detail and greater intimacy, and probably would have worked for longer time with him. I'm not sure about that. So I'm a little nervous on coming over to speak on Bhabha because my interaction with him is restricted physically to one event. 1965, graduation ceremony of the 8th batch of the training school. Dr. K.K. Damodaran asked me to deliver the vote of thanks. I delivered that, 1965, July 31st, 4 o'clock. And Dr. Bhabha was there along with his mother. So I thanked them profusely. And I was afraid to look at Dr. Bhabha on the face because very few people have the audacity to look at him squarely on the face. He shrugs his shoulders and makes you bounce back. Well, I escaped narrowly any comments from him, and his mother thanked me. That's the only interaction I had with him. The rest of the interactions I had by reading a book called The Atomic Energy in India, 50 years. This is the document I have based on for speaking about him. I have also tried to retrieve some information from personal sources, which included P.K. Nagarajan, who was head of the publicity division in the 1970s, M.A. Vallodi, joint secretary in the Department of Atomic Energy at OIC, T.N. Sheshan, who was director of external relations, then secondary information from Dr. Sarabhai through Dr. M.P.S. Ramani, and the boatsman. Well, his name is, he was launching the vehicle, Menon from Ottapalam, who has been ferrying Dr. Bhabha from OIC to Cyrus Jetty. These are the people, the events from which I have gathered the most of the information. Then some nodding acquaintance or familiarity with the Department of Atomic Energy, because I had an occasion to travel to most of the atomic energy establishments in the country. And what is more, I had the great privilege of traveling from South Side to Gamma Gate and to North Gate several number of times. So that just means a landscape and familiarity, surface familiarity of a geography. So that I have had. And then when I was working in the health physics division, there is a central emergency post to be operated from Cyrus, which enables you to travel to the top of the Tombe Hill for measuring the gamma radiation level over there. So you can have an aerial view of Bark from that. So these, I must tell you, are the general information I have on Dr. Bhabha. Most of them are secondary. They are all anecdotal. They have not been researched in the way in which it is being, physical sciences are being researched. So therefore, I crave for indulgence for my anecdotal presentation of a great personality whom Dr. Kuti described with appropriate adjective for every noun he has used. So that's the complete picture which he has already presented. Now, the dream statement, they're speaking about a dream and of a dreamer. And the dream has to be articulated because we should know what his dream was. I find from documented literature that his dream was indigenous nuclear power production with the demonstrable capacity of the entire, with the competency and capability throughout the entire nuclear fuel cycle. Dr. Govindanguti also raised that articulated form of his expression of the dream. So that is the background, the introduction, and the apology for my consuming about an hour of your time. That's about 60 minutes, and you will be exposed to and suffering about 6,000 words from me on this subject. We are going to discuss the high-profile education achievements of a great man, of a great dreamer. We know that he was born on 30th October 1909, apparently at Kenilworth though there is some dispute among people now that whether it was in Malabar Hill or so, but the documents have been checked and that he was born only in Kenilworth, and there is additional 2 streams of evidence for the fact that he was born in a particular room in Kenilworth, which he later occupied and made his office as a self-actualization principle. Now, whether he was born in the morning or at noon or at night, I looked into his horoscope cast by a source whose veracity I cannot judge, but I find that he was born at 6 a.m. in the morning as a rising sun. And then someone has cast his horoscope in the astrological sense of that. But you will find that he had a stellar education. Today, when you speak about Cathedral and John Conant School, that's the place where the great people's children gravitate to. Strong reasons for it. Today, even while competing with international baccalaureate system in Mumbai, you compare with Nirbai Ambani's school at his place at Bandra, you will find people still moving to and preferring to go to senior Cambridge at John Conant School. So that is the magnetic attraction this school had since its inception, and it continues to be so. To be an alumnus of that institute is certainly a very, very prestigious position as far as school education is concerned. And he did his senior Cambridge, whose syllabus you must see is very different from the matriculation syllabus of the CBSE, ICSE, or the Sarvodaya school. But you will also find that it was superior to the international baccalaureate system. So that is the educational background, the syllabus and content through which he has gone. And at the age of 15, he has passed senior Cambridge in honors, a very rare distinction, which makes you immediately eligible to all the Ivy League colleges of that time. Today, if someone comes out of senior Cambridge with an honors, the admission in any Ivy college is absolutely certain. So that is a background projecting back into time to find out where in the competitive field of education Dr. Bhabha was standing. Of course, we know that his father wanted him to be an engineer. And there was a time when engineering was a prized possession and a social ornament in those days. And they have an industrial empire, and they wanted a captain for their industrial empire. And there was nothing natural about it. And they wanted him to have a mechanical science propose. And his love and fascination and admiration was for physics and theoretical physics. There was a clash of interests, but then submitting to parental pressure, the tender loving care with which his parents brought him, the lawyer father, then he agreed to take the engineering degree in the first instance and then follow his pursuit to go for mathematical propose. And he took his BA in mechanical science propose at the age of 21. You know, the age at which we take our degrees are very important. If you look at the Greek historiography, you will find that there was a tendency in olden Greek times that the age of a woman is described only after marriage. That is 2 years old, 3 years old, depending upon the year of marriage. Similarly, the age at PhD is a significant professional parameter even today, the age at which you took your PhD and from where you took. So he had his PhD at 25, his mechanical propose in 21, and after 25, you will find a series of classic, highly valued papers, weighty papers, I would call them, circulating in the published literature. And then comes the fellowship of the Royal Society at the very young age of 32, which enables him to become a reader and a full professor in 33. And if you look at his whole professional profile, 39 as Secretary to the Government of India. This in a nutshell is the curriculum vitae or the bioprofile which Bhabha had. And this I would call is not only illuminating, but luminous and remains unsurpassed by many other scientists of our times. Having said that, and I showed you a short while ago that his birth was at Kenilworth, but the distinguished physicist C.N.R. Rao, while they were asking for removing the Bhabha's museum pieces from a house, said that he was born there. But we have gone through the records and we found that it is at Kenilworth he was born, because Kenilworth was declared as the forerunner or the harbinger of Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. And it was the official place for TAFR for a short while until it moved to Old Yard Club. Yes. Now, I gave this picture of Dr. Bhabha to see that he is a totally westernized, anglicized, absorbing the quintessence of the British system of education, trained in the sensitive elevations at one of the finest places. For example, the Keyes Institute, where he has studied in Cambridge University, is the melting pot or a crucible of the finest geniuses of his time, rubbing shoulders with artists, philosophers, musicians, singers, mathematicians, philosophers. So his contemporaries was shoulder to shoulder with some of the finest minds of his times. That's the beauty of it. So that adds on to his intellectual capital, which he has inherited. Now we speak about his dream. Now, when you speak about a dream, normally if somebody calls you, you are a dreamer, I don't think it's a very complimentary, attractive adjective to be added to you. But it is in sharp contrast with that you are not a doer. You dream, you indulge in fancies, you fabricate things in fancy, in imagination, and hallucination also. So a dreamer is not one which is valued by sociologists, although psychologists find a lot of meaning and attribute significance to your dreams. Of course, today dream analysis is a fantastic, sophisticated procedure, and the rapid eye movement sleep is being measured with electroencephalographs, and neurologists give you interpretations perfectly fine. But we are not referring to that dream, that personal neurological dreams of Dr. Bhabha, but we are discussing the dream in the management sense, as a technology leader, as a scientific leader, as one who guided the destiny of stewardship and leadership of our nuclear flagship. So the dreams here, I would put them as in the management category, which all students of management know that we have the mission, vision, goal statements, or the mission, vision, objective statements, which every MBA student learns. And drafting the vision is one of the biggest problems. And drafting the vision, mission, goal of the Atomic Energy Commission was a single-handed effort. Of course, there were a few others who gave the valid inputs into that, but integrating it was the single solitary source, and that was Dr. Bhabha himself. So the dreams which Bhabha transmuted or transfigured into vision, we might call them in the philosophical term, which Bertrand Russell calls as prevision. That is, vision is the stated document, but as subscribed to the vision, there is a prevision, and that is what we are thinking of. That reminds me of a quote from Hamlet: to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Yes, if Bhabha were to dream in the cold, icy chambers where he met with his last breath, will he be able to dream? And if he dreams, and if he finds out what are the natural and probable consequences, the dreams he had when he was alive, then you will find either a convergence or a confluence or a contradiction. So we are now trying to look at the dreams as it is, the execution of the dreams, and how far there has been a congruence in translating those dreams into reality. Now, the dreams which we speak of is a product of our interaction. My dreams are different from yours, and the dreams of a highly educated, sophisticated, intellectual mind of the westernized civilization will be very, very different from that of an indigenous product. In fact, you can find the difference between the dreams of APJ Kalam, between the dreams of C.V. Raman. In fact, all our dreams are products of our upbringing. Whom do we meet? Whom do we talk to? How long our conversation stands? These are the three basic parameters for drawing up the profile of your dreams. If Dr. Bhabha was having conversations, leisurely conversations with the prime ministers of the country, and talking at low voice to people like Yukawa and Einstein, then you will find his dreams, the quality of his dreams, as well as the quantity of his dreams should be very, very different. So if you do a dream analysis in that sense of the number of people he contacted and the number of hours he spent with them and the chatting style in which it was done, you will get those dreams were of a very, very special class. In fact, the great defense strategist of our countries, K. Subramaniam, once mentioned that Bhabha was a rare scientist who could market his dream to both J.R.D. Tata and to Jawaharlal Nehru. A political scientist of the school of the Fabian school of thought, Nehru, and J.R.D. Tata, a hard-boiled industrialist and a capitalist. Now, with two different personalities, extremely diverse, I would even say diametrically opposite personalities, the same dream could be sold to them to the same degree, with equal power and equal measure, with the result that both of them accepted it. So there must be something extremely charming and charismatic as far as Bhabha is concerned, or his marketing strategy of dreams are concerned. And that is an area which is now worthy of research. And because the dreamer today, in fact, if you go into contemporary sociology, beyond the Weber sociology, you will find that there is always a factor called reality distortion force or a reality distortion field. Now, like the electromagnetic field in which charged particles move, the dreams and the dreamer also lives in a reality distortion phase and changes the world. That RDF gives him an enormous power, virtually to charm all people who work with him. That is one of the major factors of this. When I speak about reality distortion field, it is worthy for you to have a look at Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson, in which on page 38, you will find a very famous statement. That is, he was charismatic. He can bend situations to anything he liked. He was mercurial, overconfident, sure of himself, a little dictatorial. Friedland taught Steve the reality distortion field. Now, DRF is a new paradigm which has emerged in management, and many professors of management are engaged in assessing or in interpreting or giving acceptation to theories of leadership of individual personalities based on RDF field. So I am also trying to make a feeble effort in that direction today. Now, the ability to convince oneself and others with almost anything, with a mix of charm, bravado, hyperbole, marketing, that's what, and perseverance, that is unbroken continuity and demanding pressure on that. That is what is called the RDF field, according to Steve Jobs. And the entire Apple culture is very similar to the nuclear culture of this country. I find a strong, irresistible comparison between the nuclear legacy of this country and the Apple culture with Steve Jobs has created, I would say, constructed. Now, there is also a reason for that. The reason is not far to seek. Artists, and Dr. Bhabha is also, Dr. Venuguti mentioned to you that in fine arts, in painting, he was a top-class performer. So the artist in him, artists have got that innate ability to distort the reality, to create reality. In their view, imagination involves the difference between an object and the implications of an object. Similarly, in order to understand the reality, it has to be deconstructed and reconstituted. And that is what DRF stands for. So Bhabha, as an artist, distorted reality to understand reality and to reconstruct reality. That will be the single semantic vector which we can use for the application of his legacy of leadership to contemporary management paradigms. If you try to analyze Dr. Bhabha in some of our standard MBA jargon, that is the dreamer is being put into the Deloitte model, because that's one of the contemporary models which is being used in our these schools, we find him as the pioneer, as someone who did it for the first time, a driver, very particular about how it is being done. And as a pioneer, you will find enormous amount of energy in him. He would be networked with the high tension political wires, quite imaginative, and very spontaneous and quick-witted. And that's one aspect of a pioneering leader. And then when you look at him, the driver style in which Bhabha was executing the projects right from Apsara onwards, you will find there is a direct, logical, focused, tough-minded, quantitative approach, classical parameters for a driver. Now, as a Gandhian leader, he was quite detail-oriented. You can find that in the construction of Zerlina. And another aspect which is to be understood in his charismatic personality is his reserved nature. Reserved nature, not of intellectual capitalism, but not even that of aristocracy, but that of his charismatic personality. In fact, today, when DRF is being taught in schools and the CEOs are being trained in the C-suits to practice charisma, there are definite methods, and you will find three of those methods with three of these methods can be identified in Dr. Bhabha. One, he shrugs his shoulders. Those who have seen him can remember that. And he can stare straight into your face, disarming. And he can fall into a silence, which is more eloquent. So these three characteristics of the shoulder movements, of staring straight into the face, and then dropping into silence, these three factors are characteristic of the reserved nature. Then as an integrator, which the Deloitte model professors always are very fond of explaining, is that of enormous, unlimited, infinite optimism. And the big picture thinker, ability to integrate everything into the totality of the picture. So that would be a rough first order or a back of the envelope description of Dr. Homi Bhabha in terms of the Deloitte model of management. If you want to have another analysis of Bhabha based on one of the first primary classical models, that's called the Blake-Moulton model. And in the Blake-Moulton model of management, we will find him occupying a position between a country club manager and a team manager. The highest form is the team manager. But it's a country club management because if you look at the structure of OIC, Old Yard Club, you will find it is a typical royal club of the defense establishment. So it has all the elements of, all the pristine purity of a country club. And that's the place which he loved most. And then the team he has been managing is the team which he has built up. It is hand-picked team. So managing a hand-picked team from a country club environment is the management style which Bhabha had followed. If we are looking at his first dream, that was building a school, the theoretical Tata Institute of Fundamental Research in Mumbai. Now there are two aspects. One is he was a reader. He started some cosmic ray work at Bangalore and he wanted to shift from Bangalore because he knew that with a Nobel laureate as the hierarchical, at the hierarchical top, it will be impossible for him to overtake or to come up to that. So a competitive spirit of projecting the present and extrapolating into the future, he found that it is better to dissociate with the Institute of Science and the Raman's legacy and start fundamental research elsewhere. And that is why he started this away from, came to Bombay, and had both J.R.D. Tata and Nehru commit to the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, and before that, starting it at Kenilworth and at Gateway of India, that is at Old Yard Club, then finally to the majestic and magnificent place that TAFR today is. In fact, if anyone who visits TAFR these days, or maybe in those days in the 70s, you will find that there is a characteristic, extremely characteristic feature about it. Everything there was spick and span. In fact, one of the inmates told me that the TAFR canteen is appetizingly clean. Now, as far as Bhabha is concerned, he has an obsessive compulsive neurosis on, yes, good. Thank you. Compulsive neurosis on cleanliness. And he has been looking for, he will reach up to places, top of the cupboards, and just check whether any dust has deposited over there. And the appetizing cleanliness of TAFR has been mentioned by 2 or 3 sources to me. And TAFR today stands far ahead of Institute of Science and Bangalore Institute compared to the diversity of topics and the rankings in terms of papers published. So that is the dream house, which was the house of TAFR for a while. And since then, all the secretaries to the government of Department of Atomic Energy has been housed in this place only. Now, the first dream, 1955, March 15, Atomic Energy Commission decided to have a swimming pool reactor, 1 megawatt thermal. And it was completed in 56 in 1 year. To complete a reactor in 1 year, that is project management skill of Bhabha of a very high order. In fact, all through these years in the south side, you will find Dr. Bhabha operating as an extremely energetic project manager. In fact, the project management style of his is something which is still not fully documented, because most of the scientific establishments could emulate from this. And I'm especially referring to this was because Bhabha was very fond of, at least that is what P.K. Nagarajan says, that when you describe the Apsara reactor to anybody outside, that is when any foreign visitor comes, he has told us, that's head publicity division has told us, there are 2 factors which should be mentioned, which Bhabha was very fond of mentioning, and he has noted down and told me. One, that there is a bluish radiation, that, and we are also supposed to stay, and we have been taught this, that whenever a charged particle traverses through a transparent medium with a phase velocity greater than the velocity of light in that medium, a shock wave is generated, and that is a bluish radiation. And that the neutron flux is 10 raised to 8 or 9. I have forgotten that number now. So many neutrons per centimeter square per second. So these 2 parameters should be explained to anybody who comes to Apsara. That is what Mr. P.K. Nagarajan was telling us when we were tutored to explain what Apsara was. So that was the closeness. But remember also that deep in the psyche, deeply embedded in his psyche, Bhabha has mentioned, built by our own people, was in operation for 2 years. And the first reactor in China, which was designed and built, which they built 2 years after India built them. So on the geopolitical plane, Apsara stood far ahead, 2 years ahead of China. And China built it with a total, complete Russian aid. That was the starting advantage which India had under Bhabha at that point of time. Then is the second dream, that is the Cyrus reactor, the NRK reactor from Canada, and the heavy water moderated reactor. And if you look at the progress in the progress report of Bhabha, of this report, you will find Bhabha's reporting to Nehru almost on a monthly basis, report to the Prime Minister, in which the progress was recorded. And when it came, there was a final assessment, which you can find, I have quoted here, that it came only to 17 megawatts, and that Bhabha has identified the 4 problems which they have encountered and conveyed it to the Prime Minister. That was the level of technical detail in which the 2 conversed. That's also an important factor, which very few prime ministers in very few countries and very few chairmen of atomic energy commissions would have done that. So that's how the zero energy reactor for lattice investigation in new assemblies, Zarlina, that is, I would call the dream 4. Then we have the thorium dream. Now, thorium dream has a long history. That was a pre-Bhabha history of Sir C.P. Ramaswamy time. Now, the Indian Railways Limited in 1963, we had the thorium plant in Toronto. Before that, this is a very interesting picture where Nehru, Baba, C.P. Ramaswamy in the erstwhile Travancore state before independence, and the state was trying the idea of declaring independence, of not joining the union. And that was based on the assumption that thorium is a fertile material. I wouldn't call it fertile material. Sir C.P. Ramaswamy had the prevision that it is a strategic mineral of great value related to Hiroshima in some way. And this alone would give us the sufficient power for the state to claim independence. That was the feeling. But then Dr. Bhabha bulldozed with this concept and brought it under the result. Now, all of us at Atomic Energy are very familiar with the breeding equation, which Bhabha has been very, very fascinated, and he has been blowing life into these equations of thorium-232 and absorbing a neutron with thorium-233, beta decaying to protoactinium, beta decaying further to uranium-233, and that's the breeding of thorium-232. And he has also been fascinated by the dream of uranium-238 neutron absorption to uranium-239, beta decaying to neptunium-239, further beta decaying to plutonium-238. So uranium-233 and plutonium-238 had been non-natural materials, man-made, synthetic in the total sense, and Bhabha's program was based on this. And we must remember that his fascination with uranium, the Uranium Survey, Development and Beneficiation Committee formed in 1954, Bhabha himself appointed him as the chairman. And there was an estimate given to him that 2 million tons is the general estimate, and even it's a low quality, low grade uranium to come with. He took the strategic decision. It was a tactical decision too, that we should go and get the first ingot, and that came on 19th June 1959. And the south side of Toronto, the uranium metal plant, the thorium plant, they are very, very symbolic, signifying his majestic dreams. Then his another dream was the Atomic Energy Establishment Training School, which he started in 1957. So there he said in his famous quotation, when nuclear energy has been successfully applied for power production, say a couple of decades from now, India will not have to look abroad for its experts, but will find them at hand. Yes, today 10,000 of them have been found at hand. And if you look at it from Anil Kakodkar becoming the first chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission from the training school, thereafter, all the successive chairmen, right now up to Dr. K.N. Vyas, has been products of the school which he established in 1957. And the 65th batch, which was just graduated recently, is a living testimony and a continuing legacy of Bhabha's fascination for school, whether it's the School of Physics in TIFR or the training school in BARC. I mentioned about his plutonium dream a short while ago, but the plutonium plant, and I'm sure some of the attendees here, like the creators of this plutonium plant includes Shri M.K.T. Nair of, I don't know whether Nairji is here. So that's the plutonium plant which he has been able to create, and that was an extremely strategic step in the history of India, in the nuclear India's history, because it is related to the plowshare policy. Now, whether India should have a nuclear bomb or not, you have a large number of media fallout on the subject. But there are evidences that Dr. Bhabha was fascinated by the plowshare program. The plowshare program was is otherwise called PNE, and you will get a lot of books and documents in BRC library about PNE projects. Most of us were reading that, and you will find the simulation of gas, underground gas by explosion, connecting rivers through peaceful nuclear explosion, creating craters. And then you will find the United Nations, if you go to UN and visit the left side of the garden, you will find this statue, plowshare. That is, the sword is being turned into a useful axe. But the fascination for a PNA was dormant in Bhabha. That is what we should surmise. And if you look at this picture, you will find Oppenheimer looking at Bhabha and Bhabha also looking at Oppenheimer. So the original Oppenheimer and the Indian Oppenheimer had exchange of glances. We do not know whether they had exchange of views. Brighter than 1,000 suns in fewer than 100 days. Now you see, the intensity of a project and the time factor are mentioned in this. Dr. Bhabha also mentioned in an All India Radio speech that in 18 months we can do this. But there was one dream which went sour. It is not because it was dreamt by Bhabha, but it was dreamt by entire nuclear pundits of that time. For example, Levi-Strauss of the US Atomic Energy Commission said that atomic energy will be too cheap to meter, and we will get domestic supplies where meters can be dispensed with. So that is the abundance or the superfluity at which nuclear power was expected to be generated. That was a dream of the nuclear community, which they shared in common, which Dr. Bhabha also shared. And that too cheap to measure, that became an infamous quote. And when Dr. Bhabha said that no power is costlier than no power, that's a very condensed matter statement. No power is costlier than no power, which means no matter what the cost of power is so important that we must procure it. So the cost factor should be dispensed with, because no power has a much higher cost to be paid. That was an argument, probably an extreme argument he has employed in favor of nuclear power. Of course, when Bhabha was having these dreams in the political fields, there were dream shatterers also. Meghnad Saha and Kosambi. Kosambi is a mathematician whom Dr. Bhabha has handpicked for work in PFR. They were strong critics of his dreams. In fact, Kosambi said that solar energy is the one to be developed in India and not nuclear energy. And Saha was critical of correlating cosmic ray excellence into nuclear technology. So these were two dream shatterers as we see in literature. Now today, if you look back, we will find where is that nuclear dream gone dry? India, 43 terawatt hours, 3.11%. And 10,000 megawatt by 2000. That is what our dream was. So there has been a mismatch. There is a tragic pattern which led to this mismatch. That's the one which needs to be understood. You can find historic documents, particularly with respect to Tarapur, because Tarapur is now being is again into the limelight for the reason that it is the oldest nuclear reactor. In fact, in the recently concluded IAEA meeting, it was described as belonging to that class of old reactors where power is being sold at a price lower than that of solar power. That's the message that was sent to the world community a week ago as far as Tarapur is concerned. But if you look at the history of Tarapur right from 1963 onwards, you will find there were several obstacles and impediments in its passage. And this is a quotation which we normally take linking two statements made spatio-temporally different between Bhabha and Ramanna. That gives a better correlation between the two. We also find that India's then foreign minister and Nehru's trusted soulmate, V.K. Krishna Menon, was against the bomb. He said the nuclear bomb is not a weapon of war or a weapon of defense. It's a weapon of mass destruction. It has no value. It has not even a deterrent value. This was the recurring refrain which Krishna Menon was blowing to the ears of people. And Baba was giving him otherwise. So you could understand the type of obstacle which Baba had to face when marketing his dreams. Then sometimes when a dreamer is no more, the next incumbent has to dream bigger than this. In fact, the peaceful applications of atomic energy has been blown to a much higher proportion, both in dimensions, by Dr. Sarabha. He said the nuclear-powered agro-industrial complex, Nuplex concept, sitting in an OIC in the same chair, there was a group working on that, of uranium as the input to our program, and agricultural produce, and electricity, and desalinated water as the output. So that was a black box which the reactor was put into, thanks to Baba's dreaming, Sarabhai's dreaming upon dream. Another dream that has gone absolutely sour is the dream fusion. In 1955, Baba stated, I venture to predict that a method will be found for liberating fusion energy in a controlled manner in the next 2 decades. That is, by 1975, fusion should have been a commodity in the market. Now, trained as he was on particle physics, he knew that the reaction is an impeccably perfect one on the blackboard. That is, deuterium will interact at very high energy with the tritium and will form the helium with a neutron extra and steam. So that nuclear physics equation was impeccable from him. And he thought the technology will also be corresponding to that. Today, we will find we haven't miles to go, many more miles to go, and we have been able to create the fusion for only a few seconds at best. It is interesting to recall that he had dreams, Baba had dreams, not only in nuclear power, but also in space. Because the Department of Atomic Energy, as the chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission and secretary of the Department of Atomic Energy, space was also with him for some time, and it was totally segregated and handed over to Sarabha. So the Indian National Committee for Space Research, 1962, it was formed in DAE, and the Tumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Station came into operation in 1963, and the Rohini 300 mm was fired from the Pearls Equatorial Rocket Launching Station. And a product of the training school, G. Madhavan Nair, became later a secretary to that department. Now we'll do a thought experiment. If Dr. Bhabha were to visit today and look at the nuclear establishment of the country, you will find a map littered with a large number of establishments. A humongous string of establishments, each one covering one aspect of the nuclear fuel cycle, which he dreamt so majestic. So we have in place the infrastructural facilities, but we find the power production missing, sadly missing. So that is where the dream appears to have gone south. In that note, I stop here.